Hi, I wanted to share some good news with you that I got last night. And it's good news for me, but it should be for you too. And that is about a book that I've been working on for a couple of years that is now available as an ebook and will be available probably in a week or two in the print version. I'll let you know as the time gets closer. But it's called Bethel Daze, D-A-Z-E, Bethel Daze. And because of the title alone, I think it's a good idea to clear up what it's not about and therefore what it is about. And that is especially because, as an admin of the Empowered and Life After groups, and as a member of other groups that are kind of similar, I totally agree with the concept that it is most healthy for the vast majority of us, if not all of us, to not dwell on our past with the JWs, not be overly concerned or interested in the current goings on of the organization. Now we're all different about those things, but within those groups, we don't really like to see things posted about those things. So why would somebody who's an admin write a book about Bethel Days? Well, what it's not about the daily operations of Bethel, how things work, and the structure of things. It's not about the teachings or doctrines of Jehovah's Witnesses. What it is about is it's a group of stories, and it's short. It's only a couple hundred pages long. The ebook is like 177, I think. It's a group of stories of my personal interactions with the 27 governing body members, couple that preceded me, all of whom I was at Bethel with, and a few of the ones that are in the current governing body. Most of them I don't really know personally, but there are a couple that I know about because of having been in the Watchtower Farms congregation and being able to compare notes on things that people have told me. It's really pretty interesting, actually. So, but again, why write this book? I mean, isn't it sort of dwelling on things that you shouldn't really be worried about? I want to quote something from George Santayana, who is an author and a philosopher, actually. That's obviously had nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. And this quote has appeared in many different forms, but it all says about the same thing. So the way I'm going to quote it is, those who do not know history's mistakes are doomed to repeat them. Now, you can take that any way you want, but it's, I think, important to understand the nature of things that we may have anger and resentment about, because we can spend the rest of our life wasting energy being resentful for something that's not even correct. So something that hurt us was really not what really hurt us. It was something else that's related to it. So you'd have to read the book to know what I'm talking about. But it's the idea is not to bring up triggers that's going to hurt people. If you do happen to read the book, or you want to read the book, but you're concerned about triggers, don't read it. Please don't. I'd rather you didn't. But it's designed in such a way that that shouldn't happen. So I want to read you a couple of recommendations from the back cover of the book, and these are all from XJ or post JWs. One is from Barbara Anderson. I think most of us know who Barbara Anderson is. I overlapped with her at Bethel for several years. She says, and this is the full version of the text that these people sent me, as opposed to the abbreviated version I had to edit to fit it on the back of the book. Barbara wrote, Bethel Daze is a vivid verbal description of untold events and colorful personalities delivered with flair and balance about those who governed Jehovah's Witnesses during the 1980s and 1990s. Well, it actually predates 1980s and goes to the present, but she's basically right. The author gives discredit where it's due and credit to those who deserve it, often using lighthearted colloquial jargon. This revealing, anecdote laden book is fun to read, yet the author relishes telling the story in all seriousness. His characterizations are not harsh opinions, but are written in a way that can add an additional degree of meaning to our knowledge of those who then represented the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses at the highest level. And then I want to read something from more recently out friends of mine, Joe and Fran Carino, hosts of The Outside Story on Six Screens of the Watchtower. All of us admittedly are creatures of our own desires. Predatory organizations capitalize on those desires in an attempt to exploit us. Gary's book details a cautionary tale, a warning to avoid getting caught up in the drama and enticements that they offer. Involvement always results in loss. One comes away with the admonishment to live in a quiet and modest manner, avoiding the snare that they set for us. So there's a caution in there that we could be involved in another cult, and I've seen that where post Jehovah's Witnesses get involved in another cult, and I don't know what the scientific reason is for that, because there's no way to figure out if our involvement with them in the first place was due to, certainly not due to stupidity or anything, but whatever it is, people may be prone to as a kind of a relapse. So I think by an accurate understanding of how things really happen should help us to better be equipped to be able to not fall for a cultic kind of a thing again. I want to tell you about just a few of the chapter headings. And then there's a chapter about my first circuit overseer, who was Sam Hurd, who's now on the governing body. And it includes, among other things, his famous now speech about the size of women's brains being responsible for the fact that they are not fit for leadership or headship positions. Well, Hurd presents several logical fallacies that obviate the fact that he shouldn't be talking to an audience about anything, but certainly not about science or women's brains, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think you'll enjoy, you probably already have an opinion about it, but you might enjoy the observations and the research I did on the facts about the difference between the composition, size, and characteristics of men's brains versus women's, because there is a difference, but it does not, you can't draw the conclusions Hurd did. And then there's a chapter called The Absentee Circuit Overseer about another man who was my circuit overseer while he was on the governing body. And there's a reason for that that has everything to do with his homosexuality. And you can also draw conclusions about pedophilia, but I don't state that as fact because I don't, in the book, I don't like to make accusations that I can't completely back up. So it's left to the reader. There's a chapter called Sex. It's not what you're thinking, though. It's about sex, but it's about a scandal, a very big scandal involving a lot of people at Bethel when I was there. Bethel in Brooklyn, as well as Watchtower Farms, in combination, actually. The chapter called Could It Be Satan? Think Dana Carvey in Saturday Night Live, Church Lady. And that's basically about an attack on music, anything that wasn't Kingdom Melodies, basically. There's a chapter called Opening Up. That's basically about hazing. That should be interesting to read. How that kind of stuff can go on at Bethel is amazing. Preserving the sandbox. Now that's interesting because the sandbox I'm talking about is the pedophilia sandbox, and I know that might be disturbing to some people, and I get why, but it's not talking about pedophilia in any kind of detail. It shouldn't bring up any kind of memories, I don't think. What it goes into is an actual war, a struggle among the governing body members, especially two who had completely different views of how to handle pedophilia, especially when it's elders and ministerial servants. Different views about education. One who was pro-education, I'm talking about higher education. One was actually for it and wrote about it. And there were actually awake articles in those days that were not pro higher education, but were a lot more amenable to it. And anyway, but there was a battle, and one outlived the other, and so we have the current situation now where we have this sandbox that they created for pedophiles, and we have this almost complete ban on higher education, and so there's a reason for all that, and you might be interested to read the story. Shootout at the Fantasy Factory, which is a story that reveals the attitude that the Watchtower has toward themselves as opposed to everyone else. Fact is, they really care about themselves more than anybody else, and this story proves it in a very disturbing way. It's a chapter called Harry Carey, which is actually a pretty funny chapter. I don't really have anything bad to say about Carey Barber, who was a member of the governing body at the time, and he was visiting my house one weekend. It kind of tells you why I call the chapter Harry Carey. It's kind of funny. Then there's a chapter called The Third Reich, which is nothing to do with Hitler or Nazism, but kind of explores a little bit more about what I know about the current situation. And then there's also fond memories of Family Night, which was an entertainment show, a variety show that the Bethelites put on for the whole family. And I was involved with every single one of them every 3 months, except for 1 month, 1/4 of the year. So it was 3 per year. So they skipped summer for all the time I was there, except for the first one. But it also reveals things because I was working with the governing body doing those shows, especially one member in particular, as well as individuals that were interviewed on the show as part of the show. was invited to their room for cast parties, and so a lot of inside information that you would never ever hear otherwise. Lastly, I want to tell you about the glossary because I don't know, I just want you to know that there's a lot of comic relief in this thing. But the glossary was recommended to me by a friend who read the book. She's one of the people that commented on the back of it. And she said, Gary, you really need a glossary because even the post JW community, there are going to be some things that people are not going to understand. So you should do a glossary. And I really didn't want to do that because I don't really want to spend time explaining details about the watchtower, what these things mean. I'm trying to avoid that, right? So what I decided to do was come to grips with it, whatever the thing is, just one sentence or so that just explains what it is in the most basic, non-detailed way, accurately, usually accurately, sometimes not. Sometimes it's funny right from the beginning. But then I go into sort of making a joke about it, not making fun of the thing, but just being lighthearted about it. So I'll give you two examples. One is called Body of Elders. Body of elders is a group of men in each congregation that are imperfect as individuals, but somehow become perfect as a body. They support themselves and their families variously as plumbers, shoe salesmen, car mechanics, truck drivers, etc. Their skills include fixing toilets, selling shoes, changing motor oil, driving trucks, etc. They occasionally receive specialized training designed to convince everyone that they have been trained. I laugh whenever I read that. I don't know if you'll get my humor, but that's what I do. And then there's another one I'll tell you about called Kingdom Hall, the main meeting place of all JWs, their chief location for learning present truth as opposed to truth. There are no icons or religious images used in these places of worship. Instead, all worship goes directly to the elders and the governing body. So there you have it. That's a little bit of a preview of my book. Again, available as an ebook. Currently only on Amazon, or I'm sorry, currently it's available on bookbaby.com, which I highly recommend if you're interested that you use bookbaby.com for selfish reasons. It's probably cheaper for you on Amazon by $1. So if you want to use Amazon, please do. I'm not saying not to, but it's much, much better for artists and authors and people like that if you go to the source, because Amazon takes the vast majority of the money that they have no right to take because they didn't create the product. They're just selling it. They give you like $1 back. So anyway, but that's selfish, but you can go to either source. You can go to bookbaby.com or amazon.com and download the Kindle version. And when the print book is available, if you want to share it with friends, I mean, most authors will never say this, but if you want to share it with friends so that they don't have to pay for it, because we're not made of money, right? Please do. I just want people to read it if they want to read it. I don't really care about. I'd like to recoup my costs at some point, but I probably never will anyway. So I just want the book to be out there. I want you to be able to read it. So however you need to, please do. But just one more cautionary thing. I probably have said this already, but if you are concerned with there being any kind of triggers, don't read it. Don't get it. Don't maybe look at it a year or two from now or something like that. But please don't hurt yourself. I mean, I would hate to hear that. But be aware that you can't judge a book by its cover. So I tried to make the cover as accurate as I could. So happy reading and happy trails. Bye bye.